In January 1945, the Japanese hell ship Enoura Maru was anchored at Takao Harbor in Formosa when Captain Marion Lawton heard a plane. He didn't need to see it. He knew aircraft engines. Japanese Zeros had a rough, rattling sound. American planes didn't. Their engines had a high whine. The moment he heard it, he knew exactly what that meant. Then the strafing started. There was nowhere to move. Just bodies packed tight against metal, heat, and darkness. Lawton knew what came next. American planes always strafed first. Bombs followed. And when they bombed ships, they aimed for midship. So he didn't wait. He searched for the narrowest part of the ship, forward, away from the center. They pressed themselves against the steel and waited. One plane, one bomb. The explosion hit midship, just as he predicted. The ship buckled. Steel beams tore loose and crashed down into the hold. Men were crushed beneath them. When the shock wore off, Lawton and a few others tried to help. They pushed against an 18-inch steel beam. Others were pinned where they lay. It didn't budge. It would have taken heavy machinery. For 3 days, the POWs didn't get any help at all from the Japanese. Among the prisoners were doctors and corpsmen. Slowly through the crowded hold, crouching beside the injured, there were no medical supplies. They made do with what they had. No sanitation. A torn shirt became a bandage, a scrap of cloth pressed against bleeding wounds. Those able to help did so. Holding a friend still, lifting a head, passing what little cloth they could spare. It wasn't medicine, but it was something. 3 days had passed. The Japanese sent down nets to lift the dead POWs out, and after that, their medics finally came down into the hold. They dabbed a little antiseptic, mercurochrome, on the worst wounds. Then they were gone, leaving the injured prisoners where they lay. The hatch was closed again, and the POWs remained in the smashed hull of the ship. They stayed there several more days. The ship had been hit in the harbor at Formosa, and the hold was badly damaged. Many of the men who had been wounded during the bombing died during those days. Around January 12, 1945, the POWs were finally taken out of the wrecked ship and transferred to another freighter, the Brazil Maru. From there, they sailed north toward Japan. The Brazil Maru was carrying a cargo of sugar along with the prisoners. Some of the fellows got into the sugar and ate as much as they could. Before long, dysentery started spreading through the hold. The men were crowded and thirsty, and there was never enough food. Not long after the POWs left Formosa, the weather turned cold. They had just come from the tropics and were not prepared for it. Before long, they were running into snow and ice storms. A tarpaulin had been put over the hatch, but the freezing wind still whipped through the hold. When it rained, dirty water from the deck ran down on them. They drank it anyway. The diarrhea and pneumonia began wiping the POWs out. They were losing about 25 men a day. As we crossed the East China Sea, the hold filled with the dead. They stacked the bodies against the bulkheads until they could be taken up and thrown overboard. The cold kept getting worse. Ice formed on the deck, and they had almost no clothing, only the thin khakis they left Manila in. The guards had rigged a crude toilet on deck. A wooden box hung out over the side of the ship. The deck was coated with ice, and the POWs stood in line, shivering, waiting their turn. When one prisoner suddenly broke from the line and ran to the canvas covering the hatch, dirty water had collected there. He scooped it into his canteen and disappeared back down into the hold before the guards could grab him. The guard swung his rifle anyway. The first prisoner within reach was struck with the butt and knocked hard to the icy deck. The POWs just stood there in line, being careful not to look. For more than a week, they continued to sail north. The POWs finally reached Kyushu in late January. Out of the more than 1,600 prisoners who had been loaded onto the ships in Manila, accounts say about 370 arrived alive.